Hello everyone, I'm Marcy with Murals by Marcy, and today I'm going to be taking an old wood accent table that I found at the thrift store and turning it into a one-of-a-kind hand-painted conversation piece. Even if you don't like the finished product, you will definitely pick up some tips along the way. If you've been following my blog at Murals by Marcy, you know that one of my favorite things to do is to go thrift shopping. And I recently found this wood accent table at my local Goodwill for just $12.99. Now it's actually called an occasional table, as in occasionally I buy things I absolutely do not need just because I know it's going to be a fun project. Now, when looking for furniture to redo, the first thing I look for, besides just the overall look of it, is I check to see that it is sturdy, just to make sure that it's going to be worth my time. And this table is made very well. I also check to see who it was made by, and usually you can find that inside a drawer or on the bottom of the piece. And this piece was made by the Mersman company. Now, I did some research online and I found that they were very popular right around the turn of the century. So this piece is an antique. Now, I know you may be thinking, isn't painting it going to devalue this antique piece of furniture? Well, the thing is, it's worth very little today because this company was so popular. There are still many of these tables out there, so it's worth very little. So painting is not going to hurt this. Also, it looks as if someone may have tried to refinish this before because it looks like they were very heavy-handed with the shellac. You can actually see the brush strokes, and there's even some drips underneath the table. So the first thing I'm going to do is sand this down smooth, and then I'm going to paint it. I'm going to be using my electric orbital sander and 80 grit sandpaper. Of course, you can sand this by hand, but just start with the really coarse sandpaper, maybe in the 40, 60 to 80 range. Then you finish off with a high grade sandpaper, which is going to give you that smoother finish, maybe a 200, 300, even 400 range. All right. It's all sanded nice and smooth. Now I'm just going to wipe it clean and take it outside for painting. I'm going to be using a good quality paint and primer in Juan in a satin finish. Now I tend to use satin whenever I work with furniture, personally because I don't like the look of high gloss furniture, and you never want to go with a flat on anything that you're going to have fingers touching or you're going to lay a drink on, because when it comes time to cleaning it, when you wipe a flat paint, you're going to change the way that it looks. So satin gives you just the right amount of sheen. Now the color that I'm going with is called Aquatic Edge by Valspar. You can see it's kind of a pretty minty green, and on top of this table I'm going to be painting some pink roses, so I think it's just going to give me the perfect amount of contrast. Because of all of the detail, I'm going to be using a paint sprayer. Now obviously if you don't have one, you can use a paintbrush or a small roller, but this is just going to give me a more professional finish, and it's going to be a lot easier to get the paint into all those little grooves. You will notice that I'm not wearing a protective mask. That's because I'm outside. There's a nice breeze blowing and plenty of ventilation. We're starting to lose sunlight, so I'm just going to fill you in on what I'm going to be doing. I'm just going to let it dry for a little bit. I'll put the final coat of paint on there and then let it sit overnight. And tomorrow we'll come back and paint the roses on it. But I'm already happy with the color. It ended up taking a couple of coats of paint, but I got the coverage that I like, and now it's all nice and dry. So I'm ready to embellish it with a few hand-painted roses. And what I'm going to be using is just regular acrylic craft paint. You'll see that I brought out several shades of pink for the roses, several shades of green for the leaves. I'm going to experiment a little and see what colors work best. I'm using just a regular flathead brush. This is a number 9 flathead brush. I've got my water and a rag ready to go, so we're going to get started. Now this is actually called a double loading technique. It's where you dip half of the brush with one color of paint and then the other half with another. So I'm going to start with the green for the leaves. So get my darker color on one side, my lighter color on the other, and then you blend. So I'm going to have the darker color be the outside of my leaf. I'm going to start by going up, kind of twist it around just a little bit, and then I'm going to do the other side and get a little more paint. So you see it goes back up. That doesn't look too great, but I'll clean that up. I'm going to put Put another little leaf right here. And the reason I'm doing the leaves first, at least in this one area, is because I'm going to have my rose kind of overlap it. Again, what I'm doing is I'm pushing down, kind of wiggling it around and bringing it to a point. Getting some more paint. Again, I go up, bring it around, bring it to a point. And then I take my dark side and I just kind of put it a little in the middle. Okay, so clean out my brush. We're gonna paint a rose now. I'm gonna do the exact same thing. Put half pink and half white. And you just kind of have to make sure that your brush has plenty of paint. Now here you'll notice that I did the outside of the leaves, the darker green, and then the inside lighter. With the rose, I'm gonna do just the opposite. The inside of the rose is gonna be darker and the tips are gonna be lighter. So that'll tell you which side of the brush to use. So what I'm gonna start with is just the outer portion of my rose. And I'll start right about here. And I'm just wiggling, and bringing it around. Now I'm going to do the inside of the rose. It'll be just smaller. Just keep reloading your brush each time. Now I'm going to do an outside petal right here. Bring it in. It's one of those things that the more you practice, the better you'll get at this technique. I'm just reloading each time with the 2 shades of paint. You see how I bring it in? And now I'm going to complete this little center portion of the rose. Come in. Now I'm just going to continue to add more rows. Another row here. And then you can even make it seem as if the petal went up. And sometimes you really just have to know when to quit, and I think this is a good time for this particular rose. I'm going to go ahead and start painting a few more right here and then adding a few leaves here and there. Little center portion of the rose. And this really is a lot of fun, but it does take a little bit of confidence and just saying, you know what, I've got this. And if you feel like you don't have this, then you can always practice on a sheet of paper or a piece of cardboard, anything else, until you feel confident. I think I'll do a leaf now. This is why initially I did the leaves before I did the roses, because it just looks better when the rose is resting on top of the leaf. So I'm going to go back and try to recreate this rose so that it comes on top of the leaf. See right there where there's some green that came through. I'm going to go back over that again. I just got a smaller flat brush, and I'm going to just add a couple other leaves, mix in a little bit of the pink. Sometimes you see a little pink in leaves, so I'm going to do some tiny leaves. And I'm just going to do like one little bubble. Do another one, flip my brush. I'm just twisting it and letting go. It's like making a little heart, basically. It's a very, very fine brush. And I'm going to dip it in this lighter green color. Make sure I don't have too much on there. Just adding a tiny bit of detail, make it look a little more finished. Well, I'm happy with it. I think I'm going to stop for now. Really, a lot of times, less is more on projects like this, and so I think this is the right amount of flowers on there. All right, at this point I could just give it a clear coat finish and be done, but I'm actually going to do just one more step because I want to give it a distressed look. So I'm just taking some black acrylic paint, wet my sponge, wrung it out, and I'm just going to dip the tiniest amount of this black paint onto the sponge, and then I'm going to wipe it on real quickly. And this is just going to give it a sort of distressed look. You have to do it really fast because it dries quickly, and sometimes you put too much. If you're a little heavy-handed, you need to wipe it off right away. And you want to especially put it around the edges. In all these areas where there's detail, it's going to pick up. Where you put too much, wipe it off quickly. Once you're happy with everything, the final step is just putting a clear coat protective finish. Now, what I'm using is a product called Project Perfect Top Coat. It's by Valspar, and it comes in a spray can. It comes in flat, satin, and glossy, and here again, I'm going with a satin finish. But again, you want to be in a well-ventilated area. I'm in my garage with the door open, and I've got fans blowing. And here is the end result. I'm really happy with the way it turned out. I think it's just sort of sweet. It has a cottage or sort of vintage feel to it, as if it's looked like this for years and years, when in fact this transformation is only a few hours old. Well, I hope you liked this tutorial. Be sure to hit the subscribe button. You can also follow me at Murals by Marcy on Facebook and muralsbymarcy.com. Thanks for watching.